Okay, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar on the top 5 things about what's new in Business Central Wave 1. So just before we start the webinar, just a few housekeeping rules. All the attendees will be on mute and will remain for the whole webinar. Please use the question box to ask any questions related to the topic, and all the questions will be answered after the demo. If we run out of time or your question requires a longer answer, then the question will be answered offline directly. Please use the chat box for questions related to the webinar, such as if you can't hear the audio or if the presenter is going too fast. But please note that a link to view the webinar recording will be sent to all attendees after the demo. So this is our monthly webinar on key areas of NAV and Business Central. You can sign up for as many as you like on our website. I'll show you the list of upcoming webinars at the end of the session. We'll also send out regular emails to register for the next one. So my name is Tiziana, also known as Dietz, and I'll be facilitating the demo today. I'm an account manager here at T-Vision. I've worked here for 2.5 years, and my background is 18 years in sales, marketing, and partner management. Ian will be doing the demo today, and he is our senior support consultant at T-Vision. Ian has been working at T-Vision for 4.5 years and has been using NAV Business Central since 2000. Okay, so many new features of Dynamics Business Central 2021 Wave 1 April release. We can't show you every new feature from these areas today, but we will show you those we believe are the most useful and applicable to the majority of companies. This new release is focused on improving productivity and efficiency and providing a seamless experience to the end user. It brings improvements to some of the existing features requested by customers, including application improvements and integration with the Microsoft stack. The features related to the new banking features primarily make bank reconciliation easier for the end user. The other features we will be covering will be on dimensions, which is one feature we've been waiting for a long time and we're very excited about. So these are the 5 top things we're going to show you today about Business Central 2021 Wave 1 updates. Bank reconciliation improvements. So the improvements to bank reconciliation is exciting and allows you to easily see how the automatic application rules have been applied to the bank reconciliation features. Now you can cancel a bank reconciliation that was posted with errors and then run a new bank reconciliation report from the bank statement page. Secondly, simplified bank statement file import. The second feature is the ability to use different formats from the bank and be able to import your bank statement into your system. With this new capability, users can configure the import of flat file and comma or semicolon separated transaction formats so they can more easily import files they have produced or manipulated to fit with the mapping that they have configured. Better together with Microsoft Teams within Business Central SaaS. So you're probably aware of the integration with Microsoft Outlook, which saves you jumping from applications. And I know the enhanced Excel integration with export to Excel and edit in Excel. In this Wave release, integration with the Office 365 suite has been extended even further with Microsoft Teams now being added. More control over settings for default dimensions. So now we get into what we would call getting a shiny new bike for Christmas and the key enhancements of this wave release. So these 2 final features are about dimensions. Dimensions are a fundamental part of your financial reporting and possibly one of the reasons you chose Business Central. The first dimension feature ensures that the correct dimensions are recorded against your transactions with a new setup page. Dimension correction on GL entries. The users have been asking for a long time to be able to correct dimensions on GL entries. In the past, you would have done this by creating a manual journal, which for large transactions is time-consuming and error-prone. This new feature simplifies this task, which will ensure that the financial reporting gives your company accurate insights without having to make notes of temporary data entry mistakes. For one or more GL entries, users can change the dimension values, add dimensions, or remove them. Okay, so before we do the demo and I hand over to Ian, we would like to get an idea of which feature you're most excited about seeing today. So let me just launch the poll. Okay, so I've just launched the poll. So if you wouldn't mind submitting your answer, that would be great. A few more seconds. So thank you for that. So Ian and I had a friendly bet and I predicted that you would vote for the bank reconciliation changes, and Ian predicted the dimensions would be more popular. It looks like Ian has won. So hopefully the demo will help you understand the new features in a bit more detail. As always, please ask any questions in the question box. So now, if I just close the poll and hand over to Ian.
Right, thanks, Deets. £10 you owe me. Okay, guys, you can see I'm in Business Central. This is the latest version, version 18 or 2021 Wave 1. And there are a few things there that Deets spoke about. I'm going to start with the most interesting one, work my way up to the exciting one. I've got a lot to fit in, so I'm going to go pretty fast, but if I do go too fast, please drop Deets a message and she'll throw something at me to get me to slow down. So I'm just copying this web address up here. I'm going to use that in a second. I'm in Microsoft Teams over here, having a chat with my boss, Nicola. And Nicola, she's new to the company and she asked me a question, how does she log in to Business Central? Well, that web address that I copied there, I can just paste it into this message and send that off. And as you can see, it sends to Nicola not just a web address, gives her an option to sign in, gives her a shortcut so that she can install the mobile app on an Android or an Apple device. And it also gives her the option to install the Teams, within Teams, the Business Central functionality. I've already installed it. Without this, you can go over here to your apps, you can search for Business Central. When you find it, you can say install. And when it's installed, you get a new little button down here within your Teams. So let's imagine Nicola's having a chat with me and she sends through a request. What can I tell her about that lady Helen that we spoke to the other day? I'm not quite sure who she's talking about, but if I've kept my contacts up to date within Business Central, I can come up to the search and say search in Business Central. Search for what? Search for somebody called Helen. And it comes up with Helen Ray. And I can click on Helen and it gives me some information about Helen. If I really wanted to, I can get more details. I can pop out, which will actually open Business Central on the contact page for Helen with all my interactions or all the interactions that the company's had, emails that have been sent, etc. It can also be something like Nicola says, oh, what was that customer we were speaking to last month, because she wants to get into contact with them. The one's from London, and that's all she has. Well, again, I can go and search up here, or I can do it down here in the conversation box. If I just type at, and I start typing Business Central, it comes up. What do I want to search for? I want to search for some customer who's in London. And it's going to look, and it's found 4 entries which have London in them somewhere. 2 of them are for a bank, 1 of them is for a company, and 1 is for an individual. So she's probably asking me about Trade Research Limited. Again, I can click on that. It's going to bring up some information. Oh, that's Helen, which I can send to Nicola, and she can click, get the details, pop out, which will open Business Central for her on the interactions page for this client. So that integration that you've seen before with Excel, and then we started seeing it with Outlook, where you can now start searching for people and having chats, it's now come into Teams. And this is where Microsoft are pushing for this whole integration of bringing everything together. So wherever you're comfortable working, that's where you work. You don't have to jump between applications to get your job done. Right, that was interesting. Now let's get on to something that's a little bit more exciting. Bank reconciliations. Bank reconciliations aren't exciting, but some of the changes are. If we just go and have a look for bank reconciliations on this system, and it still looks pretty similar to the way it's looked in previous versions. I have one that I've already prepared. Fortunately, it's a very simple one. It's just one line. This looks fantastic to me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post this reconciliation. Yes, I'm sure. And now that I've posted it and I pick up the reconciliation, and oops, I've just noticed on the bottom of the sheet of paper, there's bank charges which I didn't see and I didn't put in my reconciliation. Oh dear, what am I going to do? If I'm in Nav or an older version of Business Central, there's nothing that I can do. It's just going to have to wait for the next reconciliation for me to fix this. But a nice feature that has been added, if I go to my bank accounts, and if I go and look at that checking account where I posted the reconciliation, and I can see, I think it's here in the statements section, there's that statement number 24 that we just posted. And you'll notice an undo button has appeared up on the ribbon. I can even go into this statement, this bank reconciliation, look at the transactions. Yep, this is the one that I did in error. I can undo this. Yes, I do want to undo this. And it takes me back to the bank recon page where I was just before I posted. So I've still got the opportunity to add a line here for those interest charges, post them through a journal so that I can do a proper reconciliation before posting. Now, if you're eagle-eyed, you might have noticed it's moved from statement number 24 to number 25. There is a button up here, and now, of course, I cannot remember where it is. It's not in matching. Oh. Change statement number. So if I do really need this to still be statement number 24, I can force it to be statement number 24. It's now 24. I can make whatever correction I need to make and I can post the correct statement. In previous versions, that just wasn't possible. I think this is a really nice addition, which is going to save somebody a lot of heartache and a lot of time fixing a sometimes simple mistake. Another nice feature that's been added is importing bank statements. So in the past, if you wanted to import a bank statement, you needed a third-party software, you needed an add-on from T-Vision to give you an import statement button with the correct format, etc. Microsoft have tried to make this more self-service. So if we go and we search for and I can't remember where I need to do this. I think it's assisted setup. And I go within assisted setup. There is a very nice wizard setting up bank import, bank statement file import. And this is a simple wizard that you can step through. You can even download a sample bank statement if you just want to test this on Kronos. If you have a bank statement your bank has given you, you can use that. You just whiz through, next. Do you want it to try and automatically create the file for you? Or do you want to manually create this mapping? I'm going to say, yeah, try and do this automatically for me. Choose this sample file to upload. I have one right here. And it's uploaded. Next. Now, I would normally check all these things are correct, but I've done this before, so I'm going to say, yes, that's fine. Yep, that's fine. Yep, that's perfect. It didn't pick up my decimal separator, it is a dot, so I'll just correct that. Next, and it is finished. And I'm going to use this for my checking account. Yes, finish. Okay, I've now set up a bank import for my checking account. So within here, I can say now import my bank statement. Choose the file I wish to import. There it is. Let's open that up. And it's imported my bank statements that I had. This only works for simple bank statements that are very flat files, comma separated or colon separated. If you've got a more advanced statement from your bank with header information and summary information, you're still going to need some help getting that set up. But for a simple import, you can now do this yourself, and you can do it within the space of an hour and you're up and running. So to me, that is really nice feature that Microsoft are thinking about their end clients now, which I do appreciate. Now, finally, we come to what I think is the icing on the cake. I don't know, Dietz was quite interested when she first heard about this as well. Dimensions. If I go to my chart of accounts, a typical day in the life of the accounting manager or reporting manager, I'm looking at my chart of accounts. Everything here looks hunky-dory, but I do record things by dimensions. So I actually want to look at this by dimension. Let me come up here and do a very quick analysis. Balances by dimension. Let's look at it by department. Yes, show me the matrix. And here I have my chart of accounts. Yep. Oh dear. £1,000 has been put against the sales department. It should have been put against the production department. So if you're in NAV, you know what you need to do. You're going to have to unravel this transaction. If it's been posted from a sales order or from a purchase order, you're going to have to reverse that out with a credit, recapture it all correctly to get it to come through in production. Or you're going to be doing a general journal where you take it out of the account and put it back into the account with the correct dimension on. And as you can imagine, if you've got hundreds of entries on one of these transactions, that's a big journal you've got to do. It's not fun. One of the nice tools that's been added is the ability to correct dimensions on transactions. So I can come in to this £1,000. Let me go back to my chart of accounts. There's a couple of ways that you can do this. So let me show you the first way. So just looking at this £1,000 that's been posted here, this is the transaction, but I know there's something on the other side that also might need fixing. I can come up, I think it's on actions, find entries. What used to be called navigate in Nav is now called find entries, if anybody's looking for it. This will find me all the other related entries. And I can see they've both been coded against sales. They should both be coded against production. So what I can do here, I can make sure that I select everything. And I get an option up at the top. I think it's under actions. No, oh dear, I'm going to have to go and look for it, sorry. Entry, correct dimensions. This pops up a little window where I get to put in a little bit of a story. What am I doing? I need to change from sales to prod, and I can say why. I'm changing the department from sales. I'm going to change it to prod. If I wanted to, I could add another dimension here if there was a dimension missing, or I could delete a dimension if there was one too many. Here it's showing me which GL entries it's going to fix. And as soon as I'm happy, I can run. You will notice update analysis views is not turned on. So if you use analysis views, you'll want to flick that on. Unless it's a really big, hundreds of lines or thousands of lines, leave it turned off and then update your analysis views later when the system's not so busy. And I'm going to run this. I am going to say, okay, run immediately. I don't want to schedule this for later. And it has gone and it has corrected those dimensions. If I go back to my chart of accounts, and if I did another analysis by dimension, let me do it the quick way, balance by dimension, and choose department, perfect. I should hopefully see that that has now moved from sales to product. Really quickly, I can fix dimensions on my posted transactions. Now, we did that from the transaction in the general ledger. If I know whereabouts this is on the system, there are other ways I can do this. I could go to my GL registers, for instance. GL registers. And from within here, I could find the register which includes this transaction. I happen to know it's this one because I searched earlier. And there is an option up here again to somewhere. There we go, correct dimensions. It will pop up that same window, but this one will pop up every entry within that register. So if there were 60 or 7,000, I would see 60 or 7,000 entries here. I would be able to make whatever changes I need to make and run them. Obviously, if there were 7,000, I would not use that run immediate option. I'd schedule it for a little bit later. So we can correct dimensions, which is fantastic. It means my financial reports are going to be accurate. My boss is not going to be shouting at me, which makes my life more pleasant. But what will make it even more pleasant is if people didn't make mistakes in the first place and I don't have to do the corrections. So there's some new features on capturing the dimensions with transactions. So anywhere where you can capture a default dimension, so for instance on a customer code, vendor code, item code, job code, or on a GL account, there are some extra options that didn't used to be there. So let's have a look at this GL account. And if I go to the account dimensions, we can see there are no restrictions on this GL account. Let's add a restriction for the department. Now we can put in a default value if we want to. I'm not going to put in a default value. And we've still got the code mandatory, same code, no code. Remember, if we choose code mandatory, it forces the end user to include a dimension before posting can happen. I'm going to say code mandatory, but we also now have a filter for what are the allowed values. So I can now click on that and I can say it can be either production or sales. It can never be administration. I say okay. So now we're saying that for this GL account, for the department dimension, it is mandatory to include one, and these are the only two options that the end user is allowed to choose. So I can start putting much tighter restrictions on, forcing, hopefully, my end users to use the correct dimensions. And don't forget, the other tools that are there for helping with dimensions, they still exist. So we have the code mandatory default values, same code restriction if we want to. You also have, don't forget, the dimension combinations, where you can say, if it's the sales department, then the cost center is allowed to be this, this, or this. If it's the admin department, the cost center is allowed to be that or that. If it's this sales region, then the customer type is allowed to be this. So you can put on all those restrictions, which hopefully helps you get the correct dimensions in. But if there is a mistake, you can always use the dimension correction tool. And when you're in your corrections, you can even look at a history of corrections and see what's been corrected in the past. And you can even undo those corrections in case you made a mistake, correcting a mistake, and you can have another go. So that's I think that's an incredibly powerful feature which should help a lot of people with their reporting. And it's something that's been a long time coming. I'm very glad that it's here. So that's the 5 things I wanted to show you: that Teams integration, the undoing a bank reconciliation, which is fantastic, the very quick and easy way to do an import of a statement if you've got a new format, the dimensions, correcting them, and dimensions, new tools to try and enforce correct dimensions. So while I was busy, Dietz, did any questions come through?
Okay, thanks, Ian. So if anybody has any questions from the demo, if you can just submit them now using the question box, I'll give you a few seconds to do that. But yeah, in the meantime, Ian, we did have some questions that came in. So first one, if there is a correction in the GL entries, will dimensions on the sales document be the original ones?
Okay. Right. Okay, somebody I think might have read the documentation. That's why you've asked that question, and it's a good question. I'm glad you've asked. So this tool corrects your general ledger entries. It doesn't correct the subledgers. So if the subledger had the wrong dimensions, it came through to the GL. This tool only corrects what's in the general ledger. It doesn't go back and correct those source documents. If you need both of them to be in sync for your reporting, then you're going to have to go the old route of reversing it out and recapturing. But if you're happy to make that trade-off and say, oh, I don't mind if the customer ledger entries don't balance by dimension to the general ledger, as long as I can get my financial reports out, I'm happy, then this tool is very good for you. Okay.
Thank you. I've got another one. Has Microsoft made any improvements for setting up new companies, especially in other countries?
Right, new companies. Yeah, there were a couple of announcements on setting up companies. So if you acquire another subsidiary or another company or whatever, one of the things that they've done is now when you create your new company, they've got a lot more wizards to help you set up your chart of accounts, to help you bring in your dimensions, etc., and guide you through the steps. You know, it's going to say, ooh, you're trying to post sales invoices, you need to set up your sales setup. Let me take you to the page and show you what you need to set up. So they've got that kind of helping hand for setting up a company. And there was something very interesting I read, Germany and Switzerland. So those two countries, they've got laws that say, data protection laws that say that information has to stay within the country. So Microsoft, for those two countries, they've made it so that the information complies with their internal laws. If it's a Swiss company, the information is on a computer in Switzerland, it's not somewhere else in Europe. And they're starting to spread that out to other countries as it becomes relevant. Yeah. And they also mentioned, Dietz, that they're making more custom localizations to comply with some Asian countries and I think North African countries around the Mediterranean.
That's right. Yeah, no, definitely. I heard that.
Yep.
So
time for one more.
One more? Okay, so we've got one more question here. Will there be more shortcut dimensions?
Will there be more shortcut dimensions? Yep. So there are still, you've got the limit of your 2 global dimensions, and then you can have another 6 shortcut dimensions after that. With this new update, there are on all of the screens, you can now add those shortcut dimensions on the general ledger entries, customer ledger entries, item ledger entries, etc., which makes your filtering and ad hoc reporting a lot easier and quicker, but it is still restricted to the 2 global and 6 shortcut. But there are some enhancements to those shortcuts to make them more visible and easier to get to. I would encourage you, I think Dietz is going to give you the address just now, to go and have a look at the documentation from Microsoft, where you can see demonstrations and documentation on every feature that's been added.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we have got a few more questions, but we will answer those after the webinar. Okay, so a few key takeaways. So we'd like to leave you with the key takeaways, which hopefully will help you. Ian showed you some of the new features, including bank reconciliation, dimension functionality, and integration. But for more detailed information, please take a look at the list of the new enhanced features on the Microsoft Docs website. If you're on the Business Central SaaS version, then all these new features will be available to you with the scheduled updates. If you're on the on-premise Business Central or NAV, then you will need to upgrade or re-implement in order to receive these features. So are any of these features enough for you to consider moving to the latest version of Business Central? Again, another reason to move to the latest version is that the latest standard functionality of Business Central could replace some of the existing nav development for customizations that you already have. We'd also recommend looking back through previous what's new documents for the versions in between the one that you have and the latest one. These can also be found on the Microsoft Docs website, as Ian mentioned. Of course, if you would like to have a more detailed discussion about this new what is new in Business Central or moving to the latest version, then please feel free to contact us. So we hope you found this webinar interesting and informative. We shall be sending out emails soon to register for the next one, and we shall also put a reminder out the webinar in our newsletter as well. So thank you for attending the webinar. Once I close the session, a survey will appear. It would be great if you could respond with some feedback. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to email them to me at marketing@tvisiontech.co.uk. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.